Hi, Lena. What are the papers then making of François Hollande's victory?
Good morning, Claire. Let's start with the triumphant ones, shall we? The same picture of François Hollande marching across the stage in the Bastille, arms in the air, being acclaimed by the crowd, has made a few front pages this morning. Over at Le Parisien, they've just headlined with François Hollande's victory. At Libération, the left-leaning paper, they've just gone with normal. Now, for them, it's not just his character that's a return to normality after the bling-bling president. What they like about him is that he seems down to earth, he seems ordinary, he seems to be able to connect better with voters. They're not talking just about his personality, but also about the style that he might govern in. They're hoping that we're now going to see a more consensual government, a more sharing of power amongst different members of the cabinet, a less dictatorial government, they call it at least, than the hyper-presidency that we called Sarkozy's. Inside their editorial, of course, there's an enormous sense of joy and relief. The left have been waiting 31 years for a party like last night at the Bastille, they say, and they also talk of their immense joy in there. They say, what does it mean to say to vote on the left? What are these people celebrating in the Bastille? They're celebrating that people in France still believe there is such a thing as society. They rather reprise Margaret Thatcher in there. And also that the values of justice and equality ought to run our public lives. And it means that you believe in the future. They don't ignore, though, that there's some pretty serious challenges facing François Hollande in the future. Perhaps most importantly, they say that if we learn anything from this election, it's the amount of French people that voted for some fairly extreme options, people who voted for Marine Le Pen, people who voted for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and the enormous divisions that opened up in French society. There were really, if you like, two Frances coming out of this election, if not three, if you take Le Pen's electorate, Sarkozy's and Hollande's, as really quite separate demographics with very different beliefs. And now François Hollande needs to join these people together.
Now, I imagine not all the papers are celebrating. Le Figaro, for example, was quite clearly pro-Sarkozy during the campaign.
Yes, Le Figaro actually doesn't quite go in for the attack on the very first day of Hollande's new presidency. They have got him as president looking quite triumphant on their front page, and their editorial says, well, France has opted for change, so they say inside it was probably inevitable, quite a step away from what they were saying a couple of days ago when they reckoned it could still be won. They're not the only ones, though, that have some reservations, if you like, about Hollande's victory. The communist paper, L'Humanité, is, of course, triumphant to see Sarkozy go. They've got Sarkozy, it's over, in bigger letters on their front page than they have Hollande winning. But inside on their editorial, they've got some fairly tough challenges for him, if you like, reminding us that some people on the left have got some pretty high expectations raised by a victory on the left that he's going to find it difficult to fulfil. In their editorial, they say they want retirement at 60 for everyone, higher salaries, higher minimum wages, and these just aren't expectations he's going to find it easy to fulfil. So we're going to have some disappointed lefties, I think, in the coming months.
And some of the papers are looking what they think are the reasons for Nicolas Sarkozy losing.
Yes, if we look back at Le Figaro, they kind of try and take apart today what exactly happened to their champion and how the campaign managed to collapse. Now, they say that, of course, the surveys were against him for at least the last 6 months. He and his camp have been portraying him as the challenger against almost the incumbent Hollande, as if he were already the incumbent for the last few months. And they say that in the end, he just couldn't turn that tide. They admit he made some strategic errors. They said that he entered rather late into the campaign. Remember, we were left waiting for weeks to find out when he would actually declare that he was running for president. And they say that perhaps his lack of a clear programme, a clear manifesto, another thing that was fairly easy for the left to attack in the run-up to this election, his seeming lack of defined policies. So they reckon he made perhaps some little strategic errors there. It's quite funny, actually. They say it's a bit like a famous seducer trying to get back his wife who's left him for someone more boring, by which they mean Hollande, of course, and in the end the French went for the boring option rather than the more seductive one. So think of that what you will. If you look, though, at Libération, for example, they've got a far clearer and rather more damning explanation of why exactly things went so badly wrong for Sarkozy. For them, it was all about the Front National and that hard right direction. They've got a whole chronology, if you like, of errors he made, dating back to when he first started to very seriously turn in a right-wing direction. Remember back in January when he told Le Figaro that he would have a referendum on what should be done about foreigners and crime, put immigration policy to a public referendum. They say that was the beginning of an extremely worrying right-wing turn, which saw, of course, just a couple of weeks ago between the two rounds, him saying that Marine Le Pen was not incompatible with the French Republic. For them, it's that kind of discourse. It's putting immigration and halal meat at the centre of the campaign that really did for Sarkozy, because from the left-wing paper's point of view, that was something that disgusted the French, something that divided them, something that created deep divisions within French society that will now, as some of the other papers were saying, be difficult for François Hollande to rebuild. But that was the destroying of Sarkozy's political career.